There's this famous quote by French philosopher Henri Bergson.
The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend.
He probably meant it metaphorically, but it may be true literally, according to research by...
My name is Martin Rolfs.
Rolfs studies perception. It turns out to see one thing, we have to not see many other things.
The visual scene is full of so much information. We cannot analyze everything at the same time.
Our brains can't process everything in our field of view, so our visual system has to come up with ways to pick and choose what we perceive. One way is by rapidly moving our eyes to new locations.
That's necessary because the high acuity vision is only possible in the center of the retina.
There are more receptors in the center of the retina, which means that the things in the center of your field of view you can see in better detail.
We need to move our eyes in order to put things of interest onto that little spot.
And to do this, we move our eyes
more than 100,000 times per day.
Yeah, more than 100,000 times per day. So why don't we see the world like this? A big blurry mess.
Whenever our eyes are moving to a new location, we're virtually blind.
In other words, we tune out the pan.
But then we get a new stable image after the eye movement.
So it's more like this. Our eyes refreshing the image every time they stop moving.
And actually it's much faster than that. It's like 3 times per second.
Okay, it's more like this. Yet clearly that's not how we perceive the world. The big mystery is how we keep track of things.
Even though on the back of the eye things shift a lot.
And it may have to do with something called
visual attention, where you focus your processing power on.
This is different from centering the item of interest on the most powerful part of the retina. This is about the brain. What part of the scene the brain is paying attention to. And Rolf says he can measure this by...
We design very difficult visual tasks.
Like identifying diagonal lines that flash quickly on a screen. Meanwhile, this high-speed camera watches the subject's eyeballs.
You see this white cross here? That's the middle of the pupil, and that's what we track. It's the right eye, but what you see is the center of my gaze.
What Rolfs and his colleagues in Paris and Munich found, and reported in Nature Neuroscience, was a link between where the eye was going to move and where we pay attention. Here's an example. Let's say these are your eyes, and this is your field of view. You're watching the lemur. When you move your eyes, your field of view changes, like this, which means the position of the lemur in your field of view changes too. Rolf says that your mind prepares for the lemur changing position. Just before you move your eyes, your brain starts paying attention to the spot where the lemur is going to end up.
We can inform the visual system in the brain where it has to expect those interesting objects after the eye movement.
In other words, the eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. And it turns out our minds are only prepared to comprehend a tiny fraction of what's going on around us.
We have the impression we see the whole world, but that's our world in that moment, okay? It's a small world.
That also seems to work on 2 levels. For Science Friday, I'm Flora Lichtman.